Welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed. I'm Robert Gilliland, and with me, I am, as always, fortunate to have
Mike Alexander.
Hey, thank you all for joining us. You know what, Mike? In the past couple months, we've had a couple situations that have kind of come up that I've read about, that I've been told about, and then some things with clients. And everyone's aware about cybersecurity. I think it makes sense for us just kind of as a refresher. And quite honestly, we maybe want to we should put down to get an expert to talk about cybersecurity and your finances on these. But cybersecurity is something that's vitally important. Let's talk with people about things that they can do to protect themselves, specifically around their finances, right? Because you have cybersecurity comes in a lot of different things. You have identity theft, right? You have people logging on and getting your information and then selling and using that. One company that we're very close with was subject to ransomware, where someone broke into one of their servers and took all their client data and said, "Pay us, or we're gonna do something with this." Let's talk about that. So when you're going through and thinking from a financial standpoint, and I know how you go to think about things and make sure things are secure, what are some things people can do?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they can do, but I think first and foremost, it's be observant and be vigilant. So that means being you know recognizing when somebody is actually trying to get at your data. So examples would be, someone is asking you a question that is designed to have you reveal some sort of information to them, and they typically would do that by telling you that something is at risk, or we need confirmation of this, or someone's trying to get into your account. It always pays to kind of like, for example, if it comes via email, just look at the email address. If it doesn't make sense, it's not uncommon for them to have one letter off, or missing a digit or something like that, but it's designed to look like it's actually coming from a reputable source. So one, again, being very observant, being very vigilant. If you don't recognize it, you want to delete it and get rid of it.
Something you mentioned right there about them kind of those emails as well as texts, right, are called phishing, right? And so it'll be from Joe Smith at Google. When you first look at it, it looks like it says google.com, but it's actually GO, the number 0, and then the rest. They're really, really, really good. It's not just your personal information that's online in cybersecurity. I'll tell you a real quick story. Got a fantastic client, one we've worked with for a really long time. He's getting up there in age. I think he's in his I know he's in his late 80s. He received a phone call that they said that they were from the Social Security Administration, and they were needing to verify his mailing address so that they could mail him funds that he was due. Well, luckily he caught it and realized that this was a phishing expedition, right? And that they were trying to get his information, because it was the Social Security Administration that asked for his entire Social Security number. So he knew that, hey, you've already got it. He goes, you already have it. And they pushed back, and then they put him in touch with someone else and someone else. But I really think it's important for people to have conversations with seniors about being aware of those things, because technology, whether it's on the telephone, whether it is on their cell phone, whether it is on email, there are a lot of people trying to get information. What else? What are some other things that people can do?
Yeah, I think a couple things. Always start with, we always start with kind of the passwords, right? And I think the first thing, first of all, most of us have far too many passwords, right? I mean, we have more passwords than we know how to keep up with. And so, folks will try to, you're trying to store them somewhere, and where do I put them, and how do I remember them, and so on and so forth. And so, what we all are kind of prone to doing is making it something memorable, like, a kid's name and their birth year, or the pet's name and a number associated with it. So we tend to keep it really simple. That's perhaps one of the things that we don't want to do. We really do need to make it a bit more complex, because these things are very easy to figure out. A person could dig through someone's trash and find out so much information about them. And so we really want to be guarded about that and think of other more creative ways that perhaps are easy to remember,
I got
but
one.
creative.
I got one. So you talk about strong passwords, right? Like what you said, people will do a number or a name or a birthday or something like that. I read this several years ago, and this is how I have always done. I've started to do all my different passwords. So there's some phrase that's important to you, right? So let's make something up. I love to eat crawfish every day. So the password is IL, the number 2, E, C, F, E, D, exclamation point.
Right.
Or some combination of that. It's just the first letters of some phrase that you're always going to remember. And it's pretty difficult every time you go and do something like that when it shows up as a strong password. So that's
right. Yeah, it's a great way to think about it. Again, I think people want to keep it something simple. And so your idea in terms of just creating a phrase and just using some of the letters, that's a great one. It's probably not one that that somebody's going to come across or going to be able to hack into. And that's really what you're trying to do is, just decrease the odds of some sort of, disaster occurring with your data, because it is important. And certainly I think, people have a lot of concern, especially when they start hearing cybersecurity and AI in the same sentence. And they're always like, there's something out there that's just crunching numbers, trying to figure out what my, what my passwords are.
Yeah, and besides that, it's easy to remember, especially if you like to eat crawfish, and with it being springtime, it's good crawfish season. One of the other things that started to happen that for me personally is a royal pain is multi-factor authentication. What's your thoughts on that? And
yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with you. It is a real pain, because I think a lot of times, you're talking about you're trying to log into an account on one device, and it's sending you, it's sending, confirmation to another device. And so now you feel like you've got to have all these multiple devices. But I think the idea is to have as much protection as possible. And I think this is particularly important when it comes to things like financial accounts, banks. I think for a lot of us, we tend to think of like some other simpler ones, where we're not really, is concerned. But think about it. Somebody could break into your Netflix account, as an example, and start ordering movies, like crazy. So, I mean, it can happen in really simple ways, but it can also happen in, with things that are, I think, very, very complex and much more important to you. So to the degree that you can utilize them, it does provide that added degree of protection.
Mike, I think we've hit on a lot of things here. We have to get an expert and do another one of these podcasts to help people, because it can be expensive defending yourself or protecting yourself. And it makes sense to check your credit bureau, to whether it's Equifax or any of the other ones, to see what your credit score is. Make sure you're aware of those things that are inside there. Being diligent, having identity theft software is vitally important. Not using public internets. I mean, when you go and travel, you're in the internet, and first thing that pops up, it says, would you like to join the local area network at Bush Intercontinental or whatever airport you're at? And I'm always like, heck no. You just never know that those things can go through to happen. One thing I want to point out is, and this is an interesting thing, is that a lot of people think that the way to combat your identity being stolen is to get paper statements and get mail delivered to you. And what they've actually found is people lose their identity more often through mail, because they forget to pick it up and mail gets delivered to the wrong place, or people go and they take statements out of mailboxes. When you're dealing with your statements, your financial records, financial institutions really do have really good software to help protect you. And by the way, they have an obligation to protect you. And so making sure that you have the right passwords, strong passwords, most of them require two-factor authentication as a way to kind of secure that data inside there. It's not a matter of if you're going to be a victim to some sort of cybersecurity. It's just a matter of when, and making sure you're doing all you can to prevent that and delay it. Would you agree?
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. All you're trying to do is you're trying to make it more difficult, and as difficult as you possibly can for anybody to be able to access your information.
So to kind of wrap this up, the one thing that I would emphasize to people is to have conversations, especially with those seniors in your lives, whether it's an aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, mom, or dad, and make sure that they become aware of protecting their information, and that when someone calls on the phone, you don't go and give them your social security number. Making sure that you're just aware. And when you get an email that says, hey, Best Buy, you need to pay your Geek Squad bill, don't just go click in there and pay that bill, especially if you haven't been to Geek Squad. That was one that we've experienced here at Concenture. We just kind of hit delete, let that go, and forget about it, and it disappears. So be diligent, strong passwords, make sure you know where you are, be protective of your information. Is really an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
100% right.
And with that, we want to say thank you. Realize this was a little bit of an abbreviated one. Our commitment is that in the very near future, we'll get a cybersecurity expert to walk through things a little bit more in depth. With that, I want to say thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
I'll see you next time. Thank you.